What's going on? It's the RapNerd, and I'm here today to talk about the season 4 premiere of The Righteous Gemstones. Now, at first I wasn't going to talk about this show because I'm like, this looks very left field for me. There are 3 previous seasons, and I have not talked about one episode, so to jump straight into season 4, I thought may have been weird, but I actually really loved this show, and I loved this first episode and where it can lead to, so I figured do a little story time to let y'all know how I stumbled across the show and what I thought about it. So, first of all, I stumbled across this show last year on my summer vacation, and this show takes place in South Carolina. That's where I'm from, and ironically, that's where I watched it for the first time. Me and my wife binged the first 3 seasons, and we just love it because if you're from South Carolina, or even the Southeast specifically, you know, the North Carolinas, South Carolinas, Georgias, even Florida, a lot of what you see in this show is recognizable and hits home because they were able to really double down on how people talk, especially, and even the way religion is seen in the Southeast with these mega churches and just this bravado of what churches represent in the South, because that is like a really, really big thing down here, no lie. And it just encapsulated it so damn well. Again, growing up here, there are so many things recognizable from, you know, taking place in Charleston, going to different buildings, being on different streets. It's all something that I've seen before, and it pulled me in immediately. Not to mention, it's written by David McBride, and I think he is one of the most clever and genius comedic writers of this show. I love that it's a dark comedy surrounding religion, because it does question a lot of faith-driven things and how things are established in the world of faith in general, but it's done in such a comedic and dry way. And what I love about it most is it's an ensemble cast, of course, and each character kind of has their own sort of humor in this comedic space. It's just a little background about how I stumbled across the series. Love it. And we're here to talk about season 4, episode 1, and I absolutely loved what's titled The Prelude. First of all, pulling in Bradley Cooper to even do this, I feel like, is such a flex in filmmaking, period. Danny McBride actually directed this too. So not only is this show, like, you know, getting talent of his scale to represent the start of the Gemstones themselves, but the cinematography is great. In each season, you see how much the cinematography and the production and the budget has increased. I mean, the first season to me already looked like a movie, but this season in particular, straight cinematic status. I mean, just the opening shots of showing the war and scaling over the battlefield, having these type of stunts throughout, you know, the Civil War, what they're showing. And Danny does this dope thing where he has these still shots of the soldiers, and it's just shot well, it's color graded well. I mean, again, if you didn't know that this was a show and you just walked in on somebody watching it, you would think that this was a movie because it just looks that spectacular. But to get into the story, I'm going to try and keep it spoiler-esque as possible because I know it just premiered Sunday. I just really enjoy how they were able to sum this episode up. If you've seen the Gemstone seasons, again, you know that this religious empire was built on not the most ethical ways. Papa Gemstone himself, you know, growing up, kind of being on some mobster type shit and turning that lifestyle around because he was, you know, saved by God and he wanted to spread the word of what he was saved by. And you see that exact same thing here done back in, what is it, the 1800s? During the Civil War with Bradley Cooper's character, because he's the first Gemstone. It opens on a really, really terrible note from a criminal standpoint, and you see Bradley display that perfectly with no cares and how he kind of just stumbled across religion. As the story goes on, you see things start to change and you see his attitude pivot, and as soon as it happened, it was like, oh, this is exactly like where the story previously was built. And I love tying those knots together, man. I know this is supposed to be the last season and it's just on first episode, but man, I really hope that they keep this show going, because I think it's phenomenal. And this episode is literally a testament to how great the writing and the comedy is, because the comedy in here is dry in this first episode, so much so that if you weren't aware of the satire of the entire show, you would kind of question, like, is this supposed to be funny? I mean, this is kind of some serious shit, but at the same time, I'm kind of laughing even though I don't want to laugh. Just the way they position Bradley's character in this particular episode, it really is, it's somber, but it brings the reality to the situation of how things were back then. That puts his character arc on a journey, and just what they were able to do in this little 30 minutes, because the shows are only about 30 to 40 minutes. So much heavy lifting to start the episode and add even more oomph to the history of the Gemstones, and I absolutely just love what they did in this episode, and can't wait this week or next week, depending on how you look at Sundays, for the next episode, because I thought this was brilliant. Each season to me is brilliant. The comedy lands. I found myself laughing out loud the entire way. It is just a ride of a show, man. I really dig what David was able to. I keep saying David. I keep getting him mixed up with David, who directed the Halloween movies, but because they're really close in tandem. But Danny really loved that he crafted the show, and he said that this is part of his upbringing growing up in the South. Just a fantastic show, and a hell of a way to start the season off. So if you've seen the first episode of season 4 for the Gemstones, let me know in the comments what you thought about it. What was your favorite part, and where do you think they're gonna go from here in this season? Even though they already showed a teaser, so you kind of have an expectation, but just let me know, you know what I mean? If you can, keep it spoiler free. And if you like this kind of content, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you already are subscribed, thank you. Until next time, peace. RapNerd Productions, no capping, that's word to mommy. Instead of banking on it, now rapping is just a hobby.